this past May, Western Maryland was rocked by major flooding, resulting in more than $33 million in damage. Homes, schools, libraries, and other community buildings were devastated.
Governor Wes Moore appealed to FEMA for disaster relief for that flooding, but this week the Trump administration denied his request, a move that the governor called deeply frustrating. This morning, we're joined by Congresswoman April McClain Delaney. She represents the area impacted by these floods. Congresswoman, thanks for being back on the show. The first time you were here, we spoke after you all had held a press conference calling on the administration to help these folks in your district out. What is the concern now that FEMA has said we're not going to help you? And then just broader, the administration really putting the onus back on the states to deal with disaster response.
So thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate you uplifting this, because I really think that politics should have no part in the distribution of emergency funding, resources, FEMA funding. And if you just looked at the video footage right before this, you saw the library, and I was in that footage briefly, but I took a Goodnight Moon book out of the library mud that was like 6 inches of mud. This is a devastated community. That school, kids were rescued off the second and third floor by boat. And so the infrastructure, there's almost over $30 million worth of infrastructure that this small community really cannot afford to do without FEMA funding. We've met pre-qualifying levels, but the most horrific part about this for me is that the Western Port fire engine, and I know this community well because I'm there all the time, it services the West Virginia community 5 miles away. So in essence, it's the same community, same storm. West Virginia gets their FEMA funding, but we don't get ours. And so it's very disappointing. And Team Maryland has all come together to say that we cannot allow politics or retribution or, irrespective of zip code or party affiliation, emergency resources should go to the communities that need it, no matter where they are in this country.
Congresswoman, where do you go from here now that these emergency resources have been denied?
Well, the state really cannot step in and fund this. And so I personally spoke to the acting director's office at FEMA. I am going to actually go back one more time, even though there's been a final denial. But this isn't just about FEMA. This is about all of the different agencies that are really looking at resources and how they are selectively kind of given by in the dialogue before this, they were talking about how you look at agencies and resources and how the Article 1 ability of the Congress to legislate and appropriate has really been sidelined. And it really comes down to how the president and some of the president's secretaries and executives are really looking at the resources of the federal government and where they're spent without regard to where Congress believes they should be spent. I do a lot. I'm the only Marylander on Ag Committee. So SNAP is a huge issue for me. 1 in 9 families in my district are on SNAP, half of them children. Our Medicaid cuts, our rural hospitals are at risk with respect to many of the cuts that are happening. And as you look at even the pulling of the federal funding from Maryland for some of its infrastructure, for its bridges, and how this is done in a way which really depends upon which governor is empowered. This is not the way we are in America, and it really speaks to our values and what we believe, who we are across the country. And it's something I've increasingly spoken about. It's not make America great, it's make America break. And they are really breaking our agencies, breaking apart some of our research, our innovation, even impacting our national security. And most importantly, I think, and Project 2025 is really about breaking the faith and trust of our people in the effectiveness of our government and its institutions. And when you can't depend on FEMA aid, what does that say to our communities?
Congresswoman, I want to talk about sort of a worst case scenario. So let's say I live in your district and I'm a family that was impacted by this flooding. I'm not getting disaster aid. Maybe my family is on SNAP benefits. Those are going to run out November 1st in some places.
Then 42 million people are.
And my healthcare subsidies might go up as well. Is that not enough pain points for Congress to get its act together and ultimately reopen the government? And for you personally, is it not enough for you to say, you know what, I've got to just open the government and vote for or try and convince senators to vote for this House CR that has passed and keep funding levels where they are?
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. I did not want the shutdown. I have 35,000 government workers at NIST and NIH, National Cancer Institute, Fort Detrick. So no one wants this government to be up more than I do. And we're here. I mean, we're going to be back Tuesday, but you can't fake showing up. And our GOP colleagues have effectively are no-shows. So it is really difficult to have a dialogue when they're not even showing up to work. Two, it's really hard to vote for a budget that will make working families' lives harder, less affordable, and truly will substantially, maybe even double or increase their health premiums. But more importantly, I really do think there's going to be a real impact on hospitals, on substance abuse clinics, on mental health clinics, and really shuttering essential services and access to health care. Having and making sure that when we do get an agreement, that the president is not going to just go in and impound funds or do pocket rescissions. So we're just asking for some basic dialogue on an ability to have faith and trust that we can really move the needle forward on some of the most fundamental issues there are. And I will tell you, I was in some of these SNAP hearings because I am on the Ag Committee, and I would have some of my GOP colleagues just look at their shoes and say, yeah, I know it's horrible. It's really horrible. And I'm like, why are you not voting your conscience? Why are you not standing up? But they are really afraid of this president. And so this is a real problem. But what am I doing? I'm doing county by county convenings. I'm going to get stakeholders from public, private, from our nonprofits, from health providers, educators to come together and say, I can't ask them to do specific things, but I, in my federal office, can say, let's shine a bright light. How can we mitigate on a local level and a state level to mitigate some of this harm, and then hopefully building up as we really work on the national narrative. I do think the pain points will happen with the increase in costs, the tariffs. Our farmers are livid over tariffs, inflationary pressure, obviously immigration, and they are really upset about both soybeans and the tariff war with China, but also the beef industry with Argentina. So I think between all of these issues across the board, from the farmers, from our the fact that our agencies are not beginning to work, and I think our air traffic controllers, that is really going to be a breaking point. So there's going to be, I think, some sort of breaking point in November, but we're not quite there. But I just wish my colleagues across the aisle would show up and start dialoguing.
Yeah, November, a week away, but we know payday was today, and about 650,000 folks not getting a paycheck. Congresswoman, we really appreciate the time this morning. Once you finally hear from FEMA on that final request, we'll have you back on to talk about where Western Maryland goes.
Oh, God bless you. Well, I'm hopeful it's going to get through. So many thanks, and appreciate you all.
Great. Have a great weekend, Congresswoman. We appreciate it.
Take care. God bless.